Hey, I'm Fiona and welcome to Inner Vivid. We're in the middle of a theme about how to live, ? And this ep is getting all judgy about, well, judgment. Judgment is a pretty basic instinct, isn't it? A quick reference check that our brains are wired to make to save time and keep us safe. But like everything in this theme, we are looking for a balance. I mean, I judge people all the time. I tend to smile when I see someone wearing my team's jersey, and I have very strong opinions about commercialising Christmas, and I think extremely bad things about reindeer car ornaments. I know, I can hear you now. I can hear you say it. They're just being themselves, but there are limits, aren't there? Okay, where are we? What is our question for today?
Some people say you shouldn't judge others because they're just being themselves, their true selves. What do you think about this?
Judgment. Judgment's a really harsh word, isn't it? I don't truly believe it's our job to judge each other ultimately, but I also think it's something that we instinctively do, especially when somebody says something hurtful to us and then tries to claim it as their own right to do so. That's really hurtful. I can say that I try very hard not to judge others, but I might also see somebody walking down the street and think to myself, well, did they look in the mirror before they left the house? And that's me making a judgment. So, claiming to be non-judgmental is a bit of a falsehood, I think, because I think instinctively we all hold those things in us. It's what we do with that and how we actually react to it within ourselves and outwardly towards others that really matters.
I definitely agree with that statement to an extent. I think that being your true and truest version, the truest version of yourself or the most authentic version of yourself is likely what's going to bring you, I guess, the most personal satisfaction. That's what I personally believe. So I don't think it's a bad thing to be living out the true version of yourself. I think where I maybe disagree with that statement is when we start to use the idea of being our true selves as a justification for being discriminative or vilifying certain groups of people or disrespecting people just in general, I guess. And if you say, oh, you know, that was just me being my true self, but in reality you've hurt someone or you've hurt a group of people, I don't think that's a valid argument for being your true self.
It's very natural and very tempting to judge other people. I do it all the time, but realistically it's not our job. I think we might be able to judge people's actions or people's decisions, but it's not really our place to judge other people. And we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do the wrong thing at times. And I think accepting that we're all imperfect is a way forward through that problem.
We love a good judgment. That's what I think about this. We can't help ourselves, but at the same time, there's more to it than that. As a human society, as a group, we have an idea about what works for the group and what doesn't work. And I think when behaviour doesn't work for the group, we tend to call it out. If you want to call that judgment, maybe that's what it is. And the classic response of, well, this is just me, that's how I am. We're not just solitary creatures. We're really not supposed to just all go off and do our own thing. We do live together with others, and I think the call to full humanity is about working out how you do that well. How do I actually contribute to the flourishing of myself and others? That's what the full humanity looks like. But again, it's hard. Life's complex and challenging. We don't always live up to that.
I completely get the idea that we should be less judgmental. We seem to live in a world where loads of us have judgments about other people. We have judgments about the clothes they wear, judgments about the people they go out with. Oh, look, that person's holding hands with so-and-so. Just give it a break. Don't be judgmental. But I don't think you can say everybody can be doing what they want just because of what they are, we've actually got to look at how people behave with respect to other people. So I do think there's a role for judgment, and the judgment is about how we treat other people, and specifically how we treat those who are not as powerful as ourselves. That to me is actually one of the key things I want to say that we should bring when we look at the world.
Now, the good example is a friend of mine who went to TAFE in 2007, and he was dreaming to do the architecture, to become a builder. And so there are a couple of things with this friend of mine. He doesn't talk to people. Every time he goes, he just go quietly and sit down until he goes. So people look at him and they say, what is wrong with this person? Does he like people? And the teacher who was teaching the subject then just look at him and say, look, maybe he's lost. He's the wrong person in the class. And so when he submitted his first assessment, and then with the architecture, it involved a lot of drawing and calculation. He was the best student, and his assignment was marked with distinction. The teacher came in the morning and said, his name is John, said, John, I thought you don't speak English. I thought you were lost. So thank you very much, and I did not expect you to get this mark. And so this is what comes with judging other people. Might be right or might be wrong. And most of the time people get it wrong.
Good one, Mamor. That is a really great point. A wise person once said, don't be a judgy judgerson, or other people will be judgy back in your direction. And maybe everyone will be getting it wrong. Okay, now so far we've been using this idea of I'm just being my true self as a way to justify being a judgy type person. But maybe we need to look quickly at this idea of your true self. Is there such a thing?
I tend to be a bit suspicious about the very idea of a kind of true self. Because I think it's often used in a kind of defensive, self-justifying way. Not always, but it often is used in that direction. I also think just philosophically that human beings are so dependent on their environments, their situations, for who they become as people, that this idea that there's some sort of true self that's simply given to me in the beginning and that kind of carries, I just don't think that exists. I think that human beings are continually in the process of becoming, that we're continually in the process of shaping and reshaping ourselves, that there's no kind of simple given true self. Now that's not to say that I don't think that there's, ways of being oneself that are truer and less true to who one is, or to the shape of one's desire, or to who, to what one's personality is, or to what one values. It is, but the idea of a true self in that other sense, I think, should be problematized. Now, I'm also for not judging other people, and generally, I take a kind of view that we shouldn't judge other people for whatever reasons. But the reason for that is not necessarily because any person's acting out of their true self. I sort of have other reasons for, I think, not judging other people is part of a kind of societal commitment to be together and to let each other be in certain kinds of ways. And you actually don't need the idea of a true self to arrive at that kind of non-judgmental stance.
The idea of just being a true self in isolation from everyone else, I think, is a very simplistic way to look at life. We are hugely connected to one another and to the whole system of humanity. And so using that as a reason to do absolutely anything, I think is really destructive. Should we be able to judge? That is a really complex question. I think we actually do each other a favour when we actually say to someone else, the effect of your behaviour is this on someone else. I think we need to be able to give each other feedback. I would be mortified if something I was doing was causing harm to someone else, and everyone else thought, we can't tell Peter that just because he's being himself. So if that's judgment, then I want to be judged. I don't want to be condemned for it. I want to be educated, enabled, so I can flourish, because if I'm holding other people back, I can't flourish. And so I can also make others flourish as well.
I can actually resonate with that because, the old saying, don't make judgment about me until you've walked a mile in my shoes. And I think everyone should walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. That way you're a mile away and you've got their shoes. But I think it's, until you understand what makes people tick, you can't understand what their lives are and what actually is going on in their lives. It's very easy to look at somebody and say, oh, look at them, they're about whatever. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know if they're suffering from some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder or something like that. You're just making an assumption based on a snapshot image. I think that's a really poor way of actually getting along.
On the one hand, I think that we should be very careful before we judge other people's lives. Unless we've experienced the things that they have experienced, it may be hard for us to understand why they're making the decisions that they're making. So I think we should be very cautious about how we judge people. On the other hand, this idea that people are just being themselves, I worry that that's an excuse for any type of bad behaviour. There are things, these principles in life that help us live with each other and get on with each other, and that just saying, oh, well, this is just who I am, gives me permission to, for instance, treat other people badly. I don't think that's helpful at all.
If there is such a thing as a true self, our inner vivid thinkers reckon we need to balance that with consideration for others. I especially like John's idea that we use the freedoms we have to make sure that others are okay, especially those who have less access to power in any given circumstance. Judgment also sounds like a basic human instinct, but like anything, we're advised to use it carefully. Does this mean we have to judge ourselves and our own judgments? It's a tricky thing, that's for sure. And just to be totally clear, there are different uses for this word, judgment, as our experts have said. There's judgment as,
oh, I don't like what you're wearing, and I'm going to make a mean comment about it, maybe behind your back to someone else.
And then there's the other, less problematic use of the word judgment, like this.
I judge that it's a good idea not to cross the road when there are cars coming, or buses too.
We've been mostly focusing in on the former version, the mean person version, because that's mostly where this true self-defense is used. Anyway, what do you think? Maybe we'll see you back at InnerVivid HQ for the next ep in this theme. Moral compass. What is a moral compass? Do I even have one? I guess, what is this about? Like orienteering or something? See you there.